episode, I welcome New York Times bestselling author Stuart Gibbs. It's so great to be talking to you today. And to start off, let's talk about you. Can you introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and where you are located?
Hi, I'm Stuart Gibbs. I'm the author of the Fun Jungle series and the Spy School series, the Moonbase Alpha series, the Charlie Thorne series. These are all books for middle grade readers, although I hope that people even older than middle grade will like them as well. Before all that, I actually studied to be a biologist, a field biologist. So I did study capybaras for a period of time, and right now I live in Los Angeles with my family.
Awesome. Okay. Can you tell our Club 15 guests all of the series that you've written?
Oh, okay. All right. So all the series I've written. So I started with the Fun Jungle series, then the Spy School series, the Last Musketeer series, the Moonbase Alpha series, and now the Charlie Thorne series.
Yes, they're all very good. I've read all of your books.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Very great. Okay, so you started writing when you were in kindergarten, and do you remember any of those early stories, or do you keep any of those drafts from when you were a kid?
Oh my God! Wait, you know what? I can. Can you excuse me for 1 second? Hold on, and I'm gonna go get one. All right, hold
Okay.
on. All right. Yes. This is called "The Day the Dinosaurs Came Back." I wrote this in kindergarten, and it was put in my school library. There's the card to check it out.
Oh my
This
god.
is you can see that I was not an illustrator. Really, but I was an inspiring writer. So this is a book about dinosaurs coming back to life that I wrote way before Michael Crichton wrote Jurassic Park. So it's possible he stole this idea from me, although I'm not sure. Uh, I wrote lots of stories when I was a kid, but the fact that my school librarian put this one in the school library and let other kids read it was really, really influential to me. It was really exciting to, for the first time, have other kids my age be able to come up to me and tell me they read my book and want to talk to me about it.
Wow, that's actually really funny because a few days ago I found this that I wrote in kindergarten.
Oh, really? Wait. Oh,
Called
puppy. Oh,
Puppy. It's about me getting a puppy, and I also was not an illustrator.
oh, there you go. Wait. Oh, now, was that about you getting an actual puppy, or was that like a blatant ploy by you to get a puppy from your parents?
I it was about me getting my puppy, but I
Oh,
found that a few days ago, so that's really funny.
that's
Um,
great.
okay, so now let's talk about your process of writing books. When you write, where do you like to be? Do you write during the day or at night?
Uh, this is where I write right here. This is my office. It's pretty much the only place I write, even when it's not a pandemic. I really like to write in this one spot. It's very quiet, and I can't write like in a coffee shop or something like that. I start really thinking about ideas. For only write well before I start writing them, which I think is pretty common among authors. So some of my ideas, like Spy School, are ideas I had when I was a kid. But at the very least, I'm really playing around with an idea for a year, maybe even two, before I write it. And so, say for the Fun Jungle series. Or maybe Charlie Thorne ones that I really have to do research. I will start reading up on it. I will try and find some experts in the fields I want to learn about, and I will interview them, and I will take all those ideas, and I start by putting just jotting ideas down on yellow pads, and I have yellow pads all over my office. I fill up these yellow pads with ideas, and then I will eventually that will become an outline. I am a big believer in outlining. That does not mean that that is a requirement for anybody who wants to write to outline, but I do outline my stories before I start writing them, and then it takes me about 3 to 6 months to write the first draft, depending on what is going on in my life, and my writing schedule is often dictated by my children's schedule. So if it's summer and they're not in school, and we're trying to travel around, it might take me a bit longer to write a first draft. Obviously, after you finish the first draft, you're not done. You have to do another couple drafts. I actually more than a couple. I do about 10, which is kind of on the low end of what a lot of authors do. I have author friends who at least claim to do 40 drafts. So all those additional drafts takes uh, another year at least. And so from the time I really start working on like actually physically writing a book till the time that book comes out is about 2 years. And then you asked whether I wrote it during day or night, and because of when before I had kids, I would kind of write whenever I felt like it. Now I pretty much write uh, during the day and sort of match their school schedule.
When you get an idea for a new character or a new plot, what is the first thing you do?
Oh, okay. So, well, I would say I'm probably a little more plot driven than character driven. So I will really start playing with plot ideas. And, one of the things is that often, uh, plot ideas they can come from sort of anywhere. And so there's certainly plots or books I've written that are pulling on ideas that I had, at multiple different points in my life, and that I'm taking those ideas from, it could be an idea I had when I was 12, and another idea I had when I was 20, and another idea I had when I was 30, and an idea I had 2 weeks ago. And but you just keep all these ideas; they're sort of tumbling around your head, and so I'm jotting these ideas down. And character really to me sort of comes out of plot in a big way. One of the most important things I like to do is make my main characters very intelligent characters. It's why I like mysteries, because it's a story where the smartest person wins. But I feel that the way that really smart people are portrayed, particularly in movies and television, a lot of the time is not very flattering and not really very accurate. If you saw the show The Big Bang Theory, that shows all these really smart people as social misfits, that's not how really smart people are in my experience. And they tend to be actually really socially adept and adventurous and athletic and often really, really funny. And so I want my main characters to really reflect that.
Definitely. And my all-time favorite character is Erica Hale in the
Oh, cool.
series. I've always wanted to play her if it comes out as a movie, so she's my favorite character. Um,
I I will. I'm doing my best for that, Kate. I really am.
so, what do you do when you get stuck with your writing?
Well, okay. So first of all, for anybody out there who writes, you should know that writer's block happens to everybody. So if you ever get stuck, don't think like it's just you. Even professional writers get stuck. I will take a step back from the computer. I find that sitting at the computer and sort of going like, why can't I come up with anything is not really helpful. So, if you step back, that doesn't mean go off and play video games. It means do something that can sort of free your mind up to play around with ideas. So for me, the best thing is taking a walk around the neighborhood or going for a hike. But I do know other people who will do yoga or meditate, and then I often do go back to the yellow pad and I start jotting down ideas and working out where I need to go to sort of get myself excited about writing again.
How long did it take you to complete your first book, and how long did it take you to find a publisher?
Oh boy. Well, okay. So I'll say this: that the first book there were many books after the day the dinosaurs came back that I wrote trying to get published. I was trying to get published all through middle school and high school, and I actually even college. I after that kind of thought, okay, maybe I shouldn't even try books. I'll try movies, which actually did work out. I ended up working in the movie industry, but I was still sort of playing around with book ideas all along. I'll say that I had a lot of fits and starts in trying to publish. So it's almost hard for me to say, well, how long was I working on Belly Up, my first book, before I got it published? Because I really had sort of multiple attempts to try and make something of that book before it actually did sell. And one of the secrets about Belly Up is that when I originally conceived it, the first book of the Fun Jungle series, I thought that was going to be a mystery series for adults. And I thought that the zoo vet, like a young zoo vet, would be the one who discovered that the hippopotamus had been murdered and investigate himself. It was my current agent who my very first phone call with her, she suggested to me that the possibility of maybe writing for middle grade, which I had not really thought of until that phone call. And the moment she said that, I thought, oh my gosh, this zoo mystery idea I have would be great for middle grade. And because it was a crime that a kid could solve, in part because it was a crime the police wouldn't actually think was a crime in the first place. So if he calls the police in the book and says somebody murdered the hippo, and they say that's not murder, that's hunting, right? So so I once I reconceived it, I was actually able to sell that version of it without writing the full book, which was kind of a rare experience. I only had to do an outline and a couple sample chapters, and was able to sell Belly Up without fully finishing it. Most people have to finish the book and sell the entire book the first time. But that although that piece worked out well, there had been plenty of years of things not working out until I sold it.
That's great that it worked out for middle grades because I love Billy. It's one of my favorites. So
Thank
that's
you.
great. Okay, so now let's talk about your books and how you weave in conservation facts. So what inspired you to weave in educational lessons and facts that relate to wildlife and conservation?
Well, okay. So obviously, as I said, I had started as a biologist, and I was always fascinated. But that was because I was fascinated with animals my whole life. When I was a kid, when I was even younger than you, I wanted to go to the zoo every day. I was always hiking around in the woods near my house. My friends and I tried to catch as many lizards and snakes as we could. Sort of had our own little reptile zoo in our garages, and so I was always fascinated by animals. But and I know I was joking around about Michael Crichton stealing my idea, but I was a huge fan of Michael Crichton as a kid. I read his book Congo when I was in probably sixth grade, and I was just blown away. It was this great adventure, but it also had all these amazing scientific facts in it. And that was something that Crichton did repeatedly throughout his writing. He would weave science and adventure together, and I always loved that. I found that fascinating, and so I wanted to do a bit of that when I wrote my book. And so the idea that I was setting something in a zoo gave me the opportunity to sort of share things about animals that people might not know. And I thought it was fun to take an animal like a hippopotamus, which a lot of everybody knows what a hippopotamus is, but they don't necessarily know what a hippopotamus is actually like. And that there's this general conception that a hippo is this sort of docile, gentle animal, but they're really aggressive and territorial, and far more dangerous to humans than any other large land animal in Africa, except for the Cape buffalo, which is kind of a tie. It's not like the hippo and the Cape buffalo, say every year, hey, who can kill the most humans? And it sort of goes back and forth between them. And I thought this was this fascinating animal. It was fun to share all these facts about hippos and weave them into the story. And of course, it's not just hippos that come to play. I've gotten to write about all these other animals that fascinate me throughout the series. And what I love about writing the series is that I don't. When I write it, I'm not just an author, but I actually still get to be a biologist. And then, of course, writing about the natural world and animals just naturally led into writing about conservation issues. In part, in a big way, because part of my job is to go to schools and talk to students in schools. And after I wrote the first two books in the Fun Jungle series, Belly Up and Poached, I realized that kids, I mean, they really cared about the environment, and they were ready for bigger issues like discussing, poaching of rhinos for their horns and elephants for their tusks, or about animal trafficking, which is a massive crime, or about human-wildlife conflict and issues that really affect all of us and that we can do something about.
And I remember when I first read your book, I wasn't a huge animal advocate, but then once I was a huge animal advocate like I am now, I went back and read your books and I found all those little conservation facts you put in there, and I thought that was super cool. And okay, so now do you visit any organizations or places early on to learn all that you need to know for your draft of the Fun Jungle series?
The Fun Jungle series was really based on kind of my love of zoos and having gone to as many zoos as I could. Now, when I was studying capybaras, I was doing my research at the Philadelphia Zoo. It was actually a science. I'm sorry, it was a project I had to do for college to find an animal and do research. And even though I was at a zoo, you can still learn a decent amount about an animal by watching at the zoo. It's not the same thing as watching in the wild, but we did not have the opportunity to go down to the Amazon or the Orinoco Basin to do research. So we would do research at the zoo, and I ended up spending a lot of time at the zoo, going behind the scenes, talking to zookeepers, and just started to realize what a fascinating place a zoo was, what a great place it would be to set a story. Then I visited as many other zoos as I could. When I first started writing Belly Up, since I'm in Southern California, I actually was able to get behind the scenes at the San Diego Zoo, which actually has a really great system in place. It really anybody who wants to can get a VIP tour of the San Diego Zoo, which costs more money, but it does go to the zoo, which is a nonprofit, and they will take you behind the scenes of just about any exhibit you want to get behind. If you know, with certain parameters, you can't do anything you want, but you can go and talk to the keepers and get close to the animals and see how they're cared for. And so experiences like that really drove my understanding of how a zoo worked. Now, I will say that in the Fun Jungle series, I didn't set it at a real zoo because I wanted things to go wrong. So I created this fake sort of theme park zoo that's really driven more by money than conservation at first. And the idea for that was to not point the finger at actual zoos in this country and say, "Hey, things go wrong there." It was to say, "Oh, maybe if you had a theme park zoo that was really thinking about money first and conservation second, things might go wrong that wouldn't go wrong at a normal zoo."
Yes. And I remember in one of your Fun Jungle books, don't you talk about a snake farm zoo?
I do, yes, yeah. In Tyrannosaurus Rex, there's a place called Snakes Alive, and it takes place at um, one of these sort of non-accredited zoos, and you know, I that actually came out of me talking to a couple zookeepers, and whenever I meet with them, I say, like, what is something that you would like young readers to know? And the idea came up often that they felt that the term zoo is not a very accurate term, that people sort of lump all these zoos together. So there are AZA accredited zoos, which are most municipal zoos in this country, which have very rigorous standards for animal care. And then there are all these other places that get, just claim to be zoos, but they're really, sort of privately run and often are not exerting the standards of care that an AZA accredited zoo would have. And the zookeepers thought that the public just sort of lumps all these together. And there's lots of people who say, like, "Oh, I went to a zoo once and they took terrible care of the animals and they're all prisons for animals and it's terrible." And a person AZA accredited zoo works really hard and really cares about animals and is doing everything they can to keep those animals healthy and mentally stimulated. And so we probably need a better term than just zoo that applies to every place that you could pay to see animals. So they this idea came up that there was this real discrepancy between an AZA accredited zoo and another zoo. And it's not to say that every one of these non-accredited zoos is bad. They're sort of all over the gamut. But I wanted to write about one that wasn't really that well run. And it is, I will say, technically based upon me going to a couple of these places and seeing how they were run. So I did actually financially support them by going in to do my research, but I wanted to see what took place at these places, and then I created sort of an amalgam of them called Snakes Alive in the book.
And I actually mentioned this because I just finished reading Tyrannosaurus Rex, and I was going on a road trip, and I actually drove by one of the snake farms.
Right? Yes.
And I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh. And I realized that was actually a real place. So, yeah, that was really cool. That's why I mentioned it. Okay. So now, so I learned a lot about koalas in your book called Poached. For example, I had no idea that a koala smells like a cough drop and how much eucalyptus they eat. And what are some other cool animal facts that you found out?
One of the things about koalas, as you may recall, is that they don't use their brains a whole lot, and it seems to be that they may be one of the only animals that whose brain seems to have gotten a little smaller over the past couple thousand years. That they when they look at a koala's brain and its skull, the brain seems to have shrunk a little bit. So koalas don't seem to be mentally challenging themselves very much, but it's working out for them. Okay, their system works. Probably the most ridiculous but fascinating fact I learned when I was doing research for Pandemonium was that pandas poop out more in weight than they eat every day. And so for a moment you go, wait a minute, how can that possibly be true? Like, how could an animal survive like that? And the answer is that pandas, uh, they are bears, but they eat mostly plants, and they still kind of have a carnivore digestive system. And pandas actually do occasionally eat meat, but it's pretty rare. And so their body is really poorly designed to eat bamboo that they're famous for eating, so they don't get a whole lot of energy from it, and most of that bamboo comes right back out again. And the bears also have to drink a lot of water, so the combined weight of the the water and the food, like they get like this tiny bit of nutrition, and then a lot of it comes out the other end. So panda does technically, between the water and the food, take in more in weight than it poops out every day. But if you just looked at the food going in and what comes out, pandas poop out more than they eat, which just is a ridiculous fact. And it also means they go to the bathroom a lot. And sometimes when you're doing research and trying to put a mystery together, and you hear a fact like that, and you go, not only is that a fact that my readers will love because it involves poop, but it also is a fact that I can actually hang an entire reveal of a mystery on. And there's sometimes these like lightning moments. You're like, wow, I know exactly how to make that fact work in the story. And then I get to talk about panda poo all the time.
No, that's hilarious. Wow. Okay. Um, do you think it's important to tell kids my age that they can take action to help save endangered animals?
It absolutely is. I think that sadly, your generation is sort of growing up with a lot of sort of gloom and doom in the news about the environment, about climate change. You even are dealing with people denying that climate change is happening, and I think it can be really overwhelming. And but we my generation and the generations before mine are really kind of handing you this planet and saying, okay, you've got to take care of this thing, and we haven't done the best job. And so uh, I think it can seem maybe daunting, but I think there's two important things: is one, to know that what the challenges are, but also to know that there are things that you can do about them, and the only way anything's going to change is if we do try to do something about it. So I it was actually I was actually working on Big Game, which was the third book in the Fun Jungle series, and which was about rhino poaching, and thinking like, oh, I wanted to put something in the back of it to tell kids what they could do. But then Poached hadn't even come out, and at that point, I was realizing that koalas are more in danger than a lot of people realize. And I went to my publisher and said, before the book comes out, can we put a little thing in the back of the book saying, hey, koalas are endangered, and here's stuff you can do to help. And so now that has happened in the back of every one of the books in the Fun Jungle series is a little bit by me as the author, sort of laying out what the challenges are, and what kids your age or adults or anybody can really do to try and make a change.
Awesome. And on that topic, I actually want to read something from this book. I have it right here,
Okay.
lying down,
All right.
and because I want to tell readers what you put in the back. Okay, so in the back of this book, so you wrote, habitat loss is the single greatest threat to animals all over the earth. As the human population keeps growing on Earth, the issues of habitat loss and human wildlife conflict are only going to get worse. You can take care to reduce the potential for human wildlife conflict around your home by not leaving food out where raccoons or possums can get into it, or not letting your cat run free so that kills local birds. If your community is building new roads and schools, you can get involved and pressure your leaders to make sure that they are providing wildlife corridors to allow animals to still move around with as little human contact as possible. And I love this passage because it's telling kids my age how we can take action and become part of the solution. And so I just wanted to mention that when we were on that topic. But yes, I think it's amazing that you put that in the back of your books.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I should say you asked about my doing research before, and one of the groups that I've gotten very involved with is the World Wildlife Fund. After I wrote Big Game, a woman there named Giovanna Grein wrote to me and said she was from the Animal Crimes Division of the World Wildlife Fund, which I did not even know existed. And so I have met with them, I've talked with them several times. And often when I'm putting together those lists of things people can do, I get that information from the Animal Crimes Division at the World Wildlife Fund. And so those were suggestions of theirs. And I think one of the other ones I remember, I was kind of surprised. They said, keep your dog on a leash when you're walking it in the wild. And because either the dog runs off and kills something, or it runs off and gets killed. So keeping on, something as simple as that can really reduce human wildlife conflict. But the other reason I wanted to even write about human wildlife conflict in the first place was that I had, when I'd written things about like rhino poaching, and I would go to schools and say, rhino poaching is a big problem, or poaching elephants for the ivory. That was kind of an easy thing for kids to say. Well, you know what? I don't do that. I don't buy rhino horn. I don't buy elephant tusks. So maybe yes, I could make donations to. To help protect those animals, but my own activities don't drive that problem. And then I realized that there are things that affect us in our own country, or bad decisions we make, or that have adverse effects on animals. And so I think sometimes students were really surprised when I started talking about how habitat loss was something we were all complicit in, because you just say, hey, look, what was here before the school was built? What was where your house was before your house was built? Animals used to live there, and now they don't. And we all need places to live. We all need places to go to school. Can't do anything about that, but maybe there are things we can do to lessen our how much of the world we're destroying, and how many animals are dying.
Definitely. And while we're on this topic, this is the last one I want to read out of Big Game. I have it right here. So this one here. So at the back of this one, on the back of this one, you wrote, in recent years, cases of poaching have doubled in southern Africa. There's a human cost too. More than 1,000 park rangers have died fighting poaching in the past decade. And I think that was very impactful. So I just love that. I think it's amazing that you're right. I just can't get over it. I love that. It really educates kids after they read your book. They learn everything about animals, and they read an amazing mystery, and then at the end they get to learn real facts about them. So that's amazing. Okay, so now I'll get back to the questions.
All right.
Okay, so continuing with this theme, can you explain from your own perspective what human-wildlife conflict is?
Human wildlife conflict is really what happens when humans begin to encroach more and more on the wild, and the animals that live there start to sort of run out of room and end up sort of ranging. Humans often think of it as like, oh, the animals are coming into our towns and our territory, when really we're the ones that went into their territory in the first place. So if you've got a mountain lion coming into a city, or a bear coming into a city, or a coyote, that's all because we have cut off their wildlife corridors and moved into their territory. And these animals are sort of, they don't really want to come into the city. They're just sort of getting to the point where they're desperate for some food. And as we as the human population just keeps growing and growing, we keep expanding more and more, the animals are running out of room, and these sort of human wildlife conflict issues are just going to get worse and worse and worse unless we sort of change our infrastructure. So as we talked, it was mentioned there, building wildlife corridors, making sure that if we build a new highway, that there's a way for animals to get from one side of that highway to the other, usually an underpass, which costs money, but is ultimately kind of a small cost in overall. So yeah, there are. There are just many issues, and it's a tough problem because, as I said, we all need to live somewhere, and there are more and more of us every day.
Definitely. Okay, so now let's talk about poaching. Can you tell us in your words what poaching means and how you have included this theme in your Fun Jungle series?
Sure. Well, poaching is there's sort of two versions of it. It's illegal killing of animals, and it's also sort of illegal theft of animals. And I think the killing of animals is the one that most of my readers sort of think of, and that's the killing of elephants for their ivory tusks, or the killing of rhinos for their horns. A lot of which is driven by misconceptions about what rhino horn is even made out of. There's a belief it's completely erroneous that ground up rhino horn is a curative of many diseases. That's not true. Rhino horn is actually made of keratin, which you have on your own body. Your fingernails are made out of keratin. If it cured disease, your doctor would say chew your fingernails and you'd be fine. That does not work. Yeah, so, but people are willing to pay. A rhino horn is worth more per ounce than gold, and that is not good for rhinos. So the best way to fight that is actually not just by having anti-poaching patrols, but through education, that teaching people that. That rhino horn is not curative, teaching people that if they want elephant ivory, that elephants actually die to get it. I mean, there are people who think that the tusks just fall out of the elephants, like a baby tooth, and that they don't realize that elephants are dying to give them ivory. So there is that illegal hunting of animals issue, but actually the theft of animals is even sort of a bigger issue globally. The illegal animal trade is worth billions of dollars a year. It's the second largest illegal operation on earth after the drug trade, and that is that people are stealing animals from the wild, either for their skins. Like pangolins are the most poached mammal on earth in this sense. People are, if you go on safari, you'll be lucky to see a pangolin, but there are thousands of these poor animals are stolen every year to make they're these little adorable anteaters that have often plates on their skin, and people want stuff made out of pangolin skin. There are the illegal reptile trade is massive. That's people basically stealing animals and for the pet trade. Also, people stealing wild birds from the wild. So there are all these animals, and they're getting stolen and sort of shipped around the world illegally. That's a huge problem, and I talk about it in Tyrannosaurus Rex a little bit, and also actually in Pandemonium. That there are. That is a huge problem as well.
So one of the things I've learned when I'm conservationist that poaching is a huge organized crime ring. That there will be one person that is desperate for money and somebody will just go pay them to go out and kill an elephant, for example. And then if that person gets caught, then the person that made them do it will just keep going until they get the ivory that they want. So it's really sad to think that, there are people out there that are desperate enough to just go out and kill beautiful animals.
Right. Yes. Unfortunately, so somebody like the ivory or the rhino horn is worth so much that someone who's impoverished can make a considerable amount of money going out and killing this animal, and far more than they can make working a regular job. And what's protecting those animals are these park rangers, as you mentioned, that it is a very dangerous job, that these people are really in a war against the poachers, and these park rangers are not getting paid that much. They're often working under very extreme conditions, and it's only because of just these people being amazingly committed people that these animals are being protected. Um, but we tend to like point the finger at the people doing the actual killing and not the people paying for the product, or the people who are really getting rich for the product down the line. And that is, again, where the real focus maybe needs to be, instead of on, I mean, as bad as someone is for going out and killing an animal, they're not necessarily the root of the problem. The root of the problem is somebody wanting to pay for that rhino horn or elephant ivory in the first place.
Definitely. Okay, so now I'm going to switch the topic to technology.
All
And
right.
what kind of cool technology or gadgets have you come across in your research on protecting animals, or even from your spy school series that could relate to helping animals?
Oh, well, one of the things that has really changed a lot in doing animal research is our ability to sort of work remotely. It really used to be that if you wanted to study an animal, you had to go find it and watch it yourself. And now we've got remote camera traps. We have drones, and those allow people to sort of study animals and possibly be even a little less invasive in the animal's territory than they used to. There are now tracking devices have gotten so much smaller that now you can actually sometimes put a tracking device on an animal that's quite small, where you couldn't before, and then there are now some there's some people at an organization called Wild Track who are saying, well, maybe we don't even have to put sensors on animals at all, especially big animals. One of the things we used to do, or we still do, is to put like a big sensory collar on an animal that involves sedating the animal, which is always a little bit dangerous. And these folks are saying, oh, what you can do is you can actually have a database of all the animal's footprints, and an animal's footprint might be as individual as your fingerprint. And if you can have a database where you can just go out and take a picture of a print you find and match it to all the other prints and figure out which animal you're tracking, then you can know what specific animal came through a place without having to collar it or do anything like that. So there are all these sort of great new innovations in technology that are coming along that are helping us study animals in a way that's it allows us to learn a lot more about them and be less invasive in their lives.
Definitely, and technology is what's saving animals. And you can go to the learn. Everyone watching can go to the Learning Lab and learn how camera traps are working, because camera traps are one of the main things that are really helping save animals. And you can really get your hands on the technology that is going out there and saving species. Okay, so do you think that kids my age can start learning this technology now so we can help end extinction?
Yeah, I think so. And sometimes there are organizations that will sort of outsource work that maybe you could remotely monitor an animal population from your computer. So there are things that kids can do in terms of technology, and there's also, I mean, certainly there are plenty of things that we can all learn about that we can just do in our day-to-day lives. Little changes that we can make in our behavior that can certainly help the planet and help animals as well.
Definitely. It's up to my generation because we have to step up, and if we don't, these animals
You
could be
really
gone
do.
by the time we're adults. So it's very important.
I'm sorry
Um,
we're leaving you with this with this problem, but we're trying. We're trying our best. A lot of us are trying to make changes and help. Uh, Make sure that we are leaving you this planet in somewhat decent shape.
Definitely. Okay, so I was thinking, and would you ever consider combining the conservation themes of Fun Juggle with your love of spying from your Spy School series with the non-stop action of your Charlie Thorne series? I'm thinking something like Pangolin Palooza that includes all the tech that is out there saving animals.
Um, Oh, there's pangolins right there, isn't it? Yes, I know you love pangolins. I love pangolins. They're the best, and it is just so awful how many of those animals are getting stolen. It's always a little tough for me to combine series, but creating a whole new thing could be fun somewhere down the line. I love combining science and adventure and conservation, so that doesn't sound like a bad idea to me at all.
Okay, so where can kids and teens go to learn more about you? And just because I'm such a fan, what is your next book?
Oh, all right. You can go to stuartgibbs.com to learn more about uh, me personally, and you can find some good environmental organizations that I like on my website as well. My next book, which comes out very soon, is Bare Bottom, which is now the seventh book in the Fun Jungle series. This one is a crime, not surprisingly, it involves a grizzly bear. There's actually two crimes. There's one involving grizzly bear and one involving American bison, or as a lot of people call them, buffalo. This is the first book that actually does not take place at Fun Jungle. I wanted to sort of change things around a little bit, so it takes place just outside Yellowstone National Park and deals with some fun crimes up there, but also sort of taps into some truly American issues of conservation, like dealing with how we've treated our own animals in this country, like our grizzly bears and our American bison. And the answer to that is we have not treated them very well at all. And then perhaps a little bit more fun, Spy School at Sea, which is the ninth book in the Spy School series. But I did throw a tiny bit of conservation into this one as well. It moves a little bit into Fun Jungle territory because I wanted to write about a really cool thing that I learned about that occurs in Costa Rica. So yes, those are the two books coming out. The third Charlie Thorne will be out next year. The Spy School graphic novel, the 10th Spy School. So I got a lot coming down the pipeline.
That's awesome. Well, that was my final question. Thank you so much for joining Club 15 today. Everybody go to stuartgibbs.com so you can get his books, and I promise you won't be able to put them down. They are so amazing. Stuart, thank you so much for joining us today.
Kate, thank you so much for doing everything you do and caring so much about the environment and trying to get your fellow members of your generation inspired and willing to act for the future.
Let's go! Kids can't save animals. Oh, yeah. Kids can't save animals. Advocacy has no age limit.